You finally get a quiet day, and instead of feeling relieved, you feel restless. The house is calm, nobody's demanding anything, nothing urgent is happening. But somehow your mind is still looking for a problem. You start scanning, you start thinking ahead. You start wondering what you forgot, who might be upset, what bad news might be coming next. And then you think, why can't I just relax? And that's the part I want to talk about, because sometimes peace can feel suspicious when chaos was your first language. I'm Emily, founder of Cottage, a certified life coach, and I help people name the pattern before they blame themselves. And this is one of those patterns a lot of people misread. They think restlessness or anxiety means something is wrong with the current moment, but sometimes the current moment is not the problem. Sometimes calm is unfamiliar. If you grew up with tension, urgency, criticism, unpredictability, emotional volatility, or always needing to be on alert, then peace doesn't feel normal when it arrives. Sometimes peace can feel too quiet or temporary. Sometimes peace feels like the pause before disappointment. Sometimes peace can cause anxiety because your body learned to pay attention when things got quiet. That is what I call the familiarity trap. Your life might be calmer now, but your mind is still acting like it's waiting for the next crisis to walk through the door. And that's important because people don't always cling to what is healthy. Sometimes they cling to what is familiar. So you want peace, you pray for peace, need peace. Say you're tired of chaos, and then life gets quiet. But for some reason, part of you just can't relax. Not because you're foolish, not because you secretly want chaos, but because your system learned to function in chaos better than it learned to settle into steadiness. And that can show up in ordinary ways. You finally have an empty afternoon and you find a way to overfill it instead of rest. The house is calm and suddenly you start looking for something to fix. Your schedule has room and instead of feeling free, you feel exposed. Someone treats you with consistency and part of you just doesn't trust it. Nothing is actually wrong, but your mind is whispering something is coming. That is not always intuition. Sometimes that's old wiring. So instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask a better question. What does peace feel like to me? Does it feel safe? Does it feel like I'm being lazy? Does it feel temporary? Does it feel too quiet? Does it feel like I'm about to lose control? You see, those questions change the conversation because now you're not blaming yourself, you're observing the pattern. And here at Cottage, we don't blame ourselves, we observe the patterns. We name it, we look for proof, we ask what standard needs to change, and then we adjust the system. Because if you don't notice the pattern, you may keep rebuilding intensity simply because intensity feels familiar. You might overfill your days, resist resting. You might create pressure where there is none. You may distrust ease. You may feel more emotionally awake and struggle than you do in steadiness. And that keeps people stuck in survival mode when life is trying to offer them something better. So here's the practical shift. Next time life gets quiet and your body starts feeling uneasy, don't immediately assume something is wrong. Pause and remind yourself, I'm not in danger, I'm adjusting to calm. That one sentence gives you space. Space to breathe, space to stay. Space to practice peace instead of treating it like deception. Because the life you want may require you to become more familiar with peace than you have been before. More familiar with order, more familiar with slowness, more familiar with a home, a rhythm, and a structure that don't keep you in survival mode. And that is part of what Cottage is really about. Not just organizing your things, learning to live in ways that feel steadier, safer, clearer, and more intentional. So if peace feels suspicious, it doesn't always mean peace is the problem. Sometimes it means chaos was too familiar, and now your life is asking you to learn a new language.